So negotiating your property purchase. Well, some of you might be listening and you might be that person that always says, I can sell ice to the Eskimos. You always hear things like that. Well, that's great, but not all of us are as confident and have the skills, and are used to doing a lot of negotiating. At some point, maybe you've been to a market and you've, negotiated a antique candles, if you like, from the trader, and you thought you got a good price, and that's your negotiating history. So we're not all out there doing it every day, albeit buying candles at a market, it probably is a very good test, and it's a cheaper option to try and improve your skills, if you like. But if you think about it logically, you probably quite enjoyed buying those candles, and it was a heart purchase. You wanted them, and just getting a little bit off the asking price made you happy. Now, when you're buying property, and I said it on the intro, it's not something you're doing every day. I suppose in your lifetime you might buy 2 or 3. Some people just buy one property in their whole life, and yes, it's one of the most expensive purchases, probably the most expensive purchase of your life. So it sounds obvious to say you've got to really try and make sure you do it correctly. Now, there's probably 2 types. There's the investment purchase and then the heart purchase. Now, if you're buying for investment, and I've said it before, it's really figures that matter. So you should be a lot more prepared, and it'd be easier to walk away. If it's a heart purchase, that's where a lot of problems come in. You hear people say, we fell in love with it, we had to have it. Now, listening to that right now, you're probably thinking, wow, yeah, they probably paid a little bit too much. Not always the case, but yes, they probably did. In my job, when I'm working for clients, I always say I save people time, stress, and money. It's quite hard to justify sometimes how much money I have saved them, because then maybe they think, well, we could have got it for that price as well. Now, I don't actually think that's the case. I think I can save money for first-time buyers. That sounds obvious. People who've not purchased before. It's all new to them, and maybe they'll get overwhelmed. It's a new process. The first time they're going to buy something, they're going to make more mistakes. I can help them more. Should be able to get more money off. But also a seasoned investor, someone who's bought 9, 10 properties, maybe more. Now, you'd think they know what they're doing, and quite often they do, but they might be a little bit overconfident. They might be bordering on a little bit arrogant. They might think, well, I've done this before, I'm going to win this negotiation, I'm going to get this property, I have to have it. So they might end up paying a little bit too much as well. The key thing really is information. You need to understand what you're buying and who you're buying it from. Information really is key, and you've got to hold the cards, and be prepared to walk away if you don't actually get it for a reasonable price. And believe me, if you have lost out on a property, when you find that next one, you've moved in, you will say to yourself, this is a lot better than that other one that we missed out on. You'll start justifying it to yourself. It will become home. So don't be afraid to walk away from a purchase. For me, negotiation, this starts at the very beginning of a search, not just once I found that house and then I start putting in figures. Right at the beginning. So when I'm out registering with agents, telling them, you got to portray that you are a good buyer. So I'm telling them, my clients, they're all organised, they're ready to go, they're your next transaction. So they're already parked in their head once we find a property. And bear in mind, I'm registering with a lot of agents. So when you're out there, get out, register with a lot of agents, tell them this information. Don't just say what you're looking for. Tell them, we've got our mortgage arranged, we've got a broker, our lawyer's ready, we don't have anything to sell. You're parking all these little bits of information with the agent that he's saying, well, okay, they're a good buyer. Just so when we do come to offering the actual money, you've got a few arguments already planted in his head that this could be their next transaction. And bear in mind that this agent is the very person that's going to be putting your offer forward when it comes to that. You don't know which agent it's going to be, so get them on side, okay? And don't be afraid to ask questions, but try not to ask the obvious one. That one that everyone says, "How's the market?" That agent then thinks, "God, this guy sounds just like every other buyer." Rather say to them, are you managing many transactions at the moment? they'll get them talking. They'll open up and they'll think, okay, this guy understands the property market. Another question you can ask them: do you have many exchanges today? If it's a Friday, definitely ask that question. For some reason in England, a lot of transactions go through on the last day of the week. So by asking that, they will think, okay, this guy must understand the market. He knows that I've got a busy day today and I should be at home, should be back in the office, chasing solicitors and getting deals through. It's just trying to tell them that you are not going to need so much looking after once the transaction's going ahead. Get them on side. They will open up. You want more information out of them, as much information out of them as possible. One of the key things, and it's going to sound obvious when I tell you, when it comes to negotiating, you've got to know the motivation of the seller. Why is the owner selling? Again, try not to ask this directly to the owner, to the agent, but hopefully through your dialogue that you're having, he's opened up a little bit. And he might just actually come out might volunteer the information. Now, if you think about a flow chart, then you don't actually have to physically draw it, although it could actually help. So once you found out the motivation of the seller, let's put it in two categories. Are they an investor? Are they selling? It's one of their portfolio and they just want to liquidate their portfolio. Okay, if that's a yes or a no, it could help you in a certain way. Yes, they're just, it's the last one of 6 that they're selling. Great. Okay, maybe they'll take a discount. Or is it the first one of 6 that they're selling? Maybe they want to get the ball rolling. Are they just cashing out? Yeah. Or if they're buying another one, if the agent says to you, yeah, he's selling this because he's already buying another one. Brilliant. Okay. They need your money. Okay. So they're more motivated. So you can go on your flow chart. Yes, they're more motivated to the yes side. If they're an owner-occupier, have they found somewhere to move to yet? If you find out that they are, well, great. They need your money again to buy that next property. This happens in a transaction I just did in Holland Park. The price was we managed in the end to get £250,000 off the asking price, and one of the reasons was the owner that was selling. Okay, she bought it a long time ago, so she had a good amount of equity in the property, but she was already buying her dream property down in the countryside. So that told me she didn't want to lose that transaction. I can envisage that the agent who she's buying through is constantly saying to her, have you sold your property yet? Have you sold it? So once we put an offer in, she's thinking, okay, I've got a buyer, let's hold on to them. And she took quite a hit. She took £250,000 off the asking price, and one of the reasons was she'd put herself in a bad position, a good position for you as a buyer, that she was motivated. So the key, it's a key thing. Motivation of the seller. Try and find out why the owner's selling. Okay. Now, I often say to clients, fall in love with your partner, not the property that you're buying. Okay. Now, in reality, yes, you've got to like the property that you're going to be buying. So, yes, you're going to live there, and people, as I said earlier, fall in love with the property. That's great. That's when you know that it's a property that you want. So, I'm not saying buy a property you don't like, but try and park that emotion to one side for a minute and justify it from a business point of view. And this is very good. If you're buying a property, try and discuss it with somebody else who's not emotionally attached to the property. Now, this is obviously where my job as a property finder, a buyer, buying agent helps. My clients, I often see, they're quite excited about it. Then we talk about it rationally, and then I handle the negotiations for them. Now, if you've got someone that you can run things by, great. And I totally understand it. When I'm buying a property for me, I'm probably one of the worst buyers out there. Yeah. So, for example, I've seen a property, I've put a low offer in on the Friday, put the phone down, I feel all great for a minute, and then suddenly I think, well, oh no, should I pay what the agent told me to pay because I just want to take it off the market? Should I go and park outside and see how many people are viewing that property? So you can see, everybody has these emotions, and you can let things get out of hand if you like. So you got to just keep your feet on the ground, think rationally, this is what we're going to be paying for it. So try it as much as you can, as much as you'll love that property, park that to one side for a moment, and if you've got a third party that you can discuss it with, great. And even better, try and get them to formulate an offer letter on your behalf. If you think about an imaginary line with unemotional and emotional at one end, when you're negotiating the most expensive purchase of your life, Where do you want to be on that line? You probably want to be less emotional. So try and leave that to one side. Okay, so once you're out there and you've identified a property, research it. Okay, the one that you're thinking you might quite like. Make sure you viewed it a couple of times, and you've seen a few other properties. Find out what the present owner paid. It's quite easy to do. You can go online, the land registry. Now this, it doesn't always affect, what you're going to be able to offer, but information is key. So, for example, that transaction I gave you an example of where the owner took £250,000 off the asking price. Another reason was she bought the property some 20 years ago for, a lot less, let's say. So, I think she paid something like £160,000 and the property now is in the millions. She's got a lot of equity there. She might not mind, it sounds quite strange, mind losing an extra £50,000, £100,000 because she's got a lot of equity there. So find out what that owner paid. If they'd only bought it 2 years ago and, let's say they bought it at $950 and now it's on the market at $1 million, after taxes, they're actually going to be losing money. So there might be less negotiating room for you to get the price down. While you're finding out what they paid, look at comparable evidence. Find 3 other properties that have sold recently, in the same building or down the same street if it's a house, to justify your argument. So again, let's say it's on at $1 million, and you find, that's number 6, and number 10, which is the same house, sold for $900 a month or 2 ago. It's going to help your argument. When you come further on the negotiation, you can say, well, this one sold at X, why should I be paying more? Okay, maybe it sold for more than one looking at. Well, then have a look at the property, look at the pictures. You can find these online normally. Maybe it's got a new kitchen, a new bathroom. So it actually justified that. So when they come back and they say, oh, number 10 sold for more than this one, this is a deal. Actually, once you've paid for a new kitchen, all the building work, the bathrooms, the tiles, etc., you're going to be paying a lot more than that property. So you've got to justify it. Prepare an argument. Okay, so it's not just giving a figure and then running away and waiting, hoping. Prepare a good argument. Know things like how much a garage space costs. I'm doing a transaction at the moment. Actually, the property is on at $1 million. There's 2 properties on at the same price. One has a parking space and one doesn't. Now, a neighbouring block, which is a new build, the developer's selling parking spaces at £75,000. Rather expensive. You'd hope you get a car with that, but you don't. In the building that we're looking at, I'm sure the market value is probably around £35,000 for a parking space. But obviously, to justify our argument, I'm saying, well, a parking space in the building down the road is £75,000. So you've got to highlight the negatives, if you like, without sounding too negative, but justify your argument. And you can use market data as well. In England, all the time, there's percentages being thrown out there from different building societies. Nationwide says that the market in London is down 0.1%. So you can play on that. You can say, look, it's an uncertain market at the moment. Nationwide says, So just give out some factual information, because as much as the agent will probably come back to you and try and shoot you down, I guarantee they're telling the owner your arguments. Okay, so if you've justified it better, you're going to be in a stronger position. And don't be afraid to go in low. Not too low that you're going to have the door slammed in your face. You've got to try and open a dialogue, but justify it. But going low. Very rarely is your first offer accepted, and the circumstances where it is, I guarantee you're going to turn around and say, "Oh, we went in too high." So go in. Don't be afraid. Go in low. They might be shouting at you, but at the end of the day, the negotiating part is the most favourite bit for a salesperson. Their job is to get the deal. So don't be afraid to go in low. Once it comes to increasing that offer, try not to split the difference. I say that because I've just read a very good book by Chris Voss. It's called Never Split the Difference. Now, It might be the case in property that you do actually split the difference because maybe there's another buyer out there and you need to get the deal under offer quickly. His job was an FBI hostage negotiator, so you can understand from his point of view, if you had four hostages to get out, he couldn't say to the person holding them, "Oh, give us 2 and don't worry about the other 2." He couldn't split the difference. So very, very good book actually on negotiating if you want to do some additional research. Okay, so the offer itself, I mentioned it, don't just say it verbally, okay? Talk to the agent, and say to them, look, we're going to be making an offer. I'll send you an email with all our details on later, and I'll outline, where we're coming from. They'll probably try and push you to give them a number. Try not to, okay? But just at this point, reiterate your buying position, yeah? So again, portray yourself as their next deal, a good buyer, You just remind them, we've got all our finances in place. I'll send you over my mortgage broker's name and number. Feel free to call them. If you need proof of finances, they're quite happy to provide these to you. Tell them that you've got a solicitor waiting that knows you're in the market to purchase. So just say, oh yeah, Mr. Jones is acting for us. I'll send you over his company details just in case our offer is accepted. We're then ready to go. So you can verbally say that and say, look, I'm going to send this over to you, and then maybe we'll have a chat afterwards to discuss the offer. So on the offer letter, very nicely drafted, you put your lawyer's details, their address, the mortgage broker. Make sure you tell your lawyer and your mortgage broker that they might actually receive a call. Yeah. The last thing you want is them phoning up the mortgage broker and he's like, well, no, I don't know this client. It kind of ruins your argument. Mention in the letter that you've can provide proof of funds if they need that, and mention a timescale. Okay, it's quite key. Tell them, yes, we're going to be able to exchange within 15 days of receipt of full documentation. The last part there is key. Full documentation on receipt of that. Owners don't always have the full paperwork ready. So in essence, by the time they have that, you probably will, and they've sent it over to you, you're going to have an extra week for you to get your mortgage offer and get the ball rolling from your side. But it portrays, again, that you're going to be able to move swiftly. Yeah, that is what you want to be able to show them. And once you've made this offer, you've got to be prepared to sweat it out a little bit. I mentioned that when if I'm buying for myself, and I gave you an example that I might, think, should I pick the phone up and just offer the exact amount? It might take a day or so, or a weekend, for them to put the offer over to the owner and for the owner to actually let it sink in. Okay, so wait for them to come back with a counter offer before you go jumping back in and saying, okay, we'll just tie it up at a little increase. Hopefully they'll come back with a counter offer with their arguments. Again, that's when you've got to then structure it again, reiterate your position, increase if you like. I would say you probably just need to increase a little bit in this market. I mean, every market's different. In a rising market, quite often you're paying over the asking price because it's very busy. Right now in London, it should be below the asking price. Yeah, and you should have a lot better argument to justify that position. Every situation obviously is very different. Okay, so you've got to have some logic behind it, but hopefully you've gained a little bit of information in there. I'm going to end up just finish up here with I was recently in the Sunday Times talking about a situation about negotiation. I was asked this question. Here's a question that someone wrote in and asked. I made an offer on a London property 6 months ago for 10% below the asking price, which was rejected. The property is still on the market. What are my best negotiating tactics? Okay, so I thought about this and I wrote back, quite a bit of information, and then the journalist has obviously surmised it. I'll read out the response. It kind of reiterates what we've been spoke about, so I think it's quite a good roundup of where we're at. Okay, so I said, be subtle. Call the agent and book to see a different property within the same price bracket as the one you really want. At the viewing, the agent will likely mention that the home you offered on is still on the market, so you can act surprised now and gently probe why it hasn't sold. You want to do this when alone with the agent rather than on the phone or in the office. The key is to find out the motivation of the seller and know how keen they are. say it would be good to view that property again. I mean, the agent might have brought the keys along anyway, because he's not silly, he knows that you liked it once. So tell the agent your position has improved. Hopefully it probably has, without sounding desperate. For example, you have a better interest rate on your mortgage or a larger deposit because you've had those extra months to save. Talk the market down slightly. Say that your friends think that you're mad to buy right now with all the uncertainty out there. Then quickly add a positive. You now think it's a great time, personally, as it's a buyer's market. The agent will probably agree, which will help you make a lower offer. You've kind of got them on side. When viewing the home you want, if the owner is there, be friendly. It's a lovely terrace you have, for example. I can imagine having breakfast there. Owners want to know their home is going to a nice person. If you have questions, like, when was the boiler last serviced, ask them through the agent later. You don't want to sound like a bad cop. Leave that to the agent. Make the offer in writing with contact details for your solicitor and mortgage broker, and alert both that the agent may call them. Whatever you offered 6 months ago, especially in this market, now is the time to offer a little bit less. Find 3 similar properties nearby that have completed at lower values. Check the land registry or other web portals and list them in the letter. Say you envisage an exchange of contracts within 15 working days on receipt of full documentation. This sounds quick, but vendors often won't have documents ready, which gives you the time to get your mortgage underway. The idea here is to show the agent you are serious. Ask them to take the property off the market and say you will stop other viewings also. Essentially, you're off the market too. Be businesslike and park emotion at the door. Okay, and I've said here, fall in love with your partner, not a property. Okay, obviously you can fall in love with a property, just don't show it. The less emotional you are, the better your negotiating skills. So I hope that's really helped you guys. That's all this week for negotiating. If you want to have a discussion about it, do feel free to ask me any individual questions. I like most people do make mistakes out there as well. It's not a foolproof system, but try and be as business-like. Go through a process. Unless you are that guy that can sell ice to the Eskimos, I think it's quite a good process to go with. Until next week, that's Matt Turner on the UK Health Radio. Thanks for joining in.